Let me know when it's rolling, Danny Palm.
We are live.
We are live, Danny Palm says.
Live from the 412.
Is this still the
Is this
412?
or is it 724?
I don't know.
I don't know, to be honest.
Does Connellsville have a different down the south? Do they have another one?
That's probably 724.
That's what I thought.
I would say.
It's just Pittsburgh that's 412.
Yeah, pretty sure. I don't know. What's Butler?
Butler's 724.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah. That's weird because it's north and south,
North and
724.
and then even when you go east towards like Ephrata and stuff,
Yeah,
it's a different area code there.
717 is where I grew up, like central PA.
Okay.
But there's one more like rogue area code I've heard of that like I've never actually seen, but Pittsburgh does have another one, and it's like near the espresso machine grinding beans. Where'd your brother go?
He's right here.
Oh, okay.
He just
All right.
walked in.
Did he get his water? His sink water?
Yeah, I think you put on the desk here. Oh, okay.
There we go.
People tune in for the MMA talk and we're
Well, these are the really important.
This is the
things.
real topics. So I'm from Butler, Pennsylvania, where we drink water out of the horse trough because there just isn't enough to go around up there.
It's very true. That's how you grow up to
That's how
be
we got so
6'8"
big
and
and
jacked,
strong.
dude. Look at these two.
We
They're
drink the same water as the horse.
proofs in the water, guys. So the reason we were talking about the area code and the reason why he's drinking sink water is, I'm sure you guys can tell, we are not in our normal studio. This is a brand new space for us.
It's just a new normal.
This is the new normal, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan and 247 Roofing have a new office out in Hickory, PA, so that's where we're at now. My phone doesn't have service here, so that takes me back to childhood. It's like the middle of nowhere. I never even heard of Hickory until they moved. Did you hear of Hickory? Exactly. I'm not sure it exists.
You want to do this podcast with me? And he was like, I think I'm going to have to go to work. Where is it? I'll just drop you off. And he was like, it's in Hickory. And I was like, what the fuck is
Where
Hickory?
is that? I know. I was worried because when we scheduled the podcast, you have a flight to catch after this.
Yeah.
And I thought it was going to be in Bridgeville. Like, I literally didn't even know they were moving studios or anything. I'm like, okay, Bridgeville's like 20, 25 minutes from the airport. That'll be
Yeah.
perfect. Then he's like, we're moving to Hickory. I'm like, oh, how far is that? Still 20 minutes from the airport. It doesn't make sense.
No, it's not bad.
Yeah, it doesn't. But I don't know where I'm at.
We were talking, Pittsburgh is a geographical marvel in that I feel like no matter where you are, everything's the same distance away. Our dad came down. Our dad lives in Ohio, and he texted us and was like, "I'm in Grove City." So Brian was like, "Yeah, Grove City is about an hour away." But it's funny because where we are in Butler, Grove City is also an hour away.
Yeah.
And we were thinking about how
How's that possible?
That's exactly.
Yeah.
We were like, how the fuck can we be an hour south of where we live in Butler, and he is, whatever, all the way up there in Grove City. But no matter what's going on, you're always an hour away.
That's so true.
marvel.
That's so true. My parents live in Butler. Takes me an hour to get to their house from like McKeesport. And it seems like it should be farther than that. I don't get it, man.
The miracle of
Even like you can even distill that down. Even from my house to like Lawrenceville or the North Shore or South Side, it's like 30 minutes.
Everything's always
Yeah, it doesn't matter which
everything's
part of the
always 20
city.
or 30 minutes. Whenever I moved,
Makes no sense.
When I moved to Florida, where the time and the distance matters, and
Yeah.
you factor in traffic, I tell people like where I lived like my first move to Florida, I lived in Pompano Beach, but I worked in Delray, and they're about in no traffic or about 20 minutes away. But then you factor in traffic and all that shit, like about 20, 25 minutes. And people were always like, "Man, you come a long way for work," and I was like, "No, this is a commute.
This is super normal.
This is just
Yeah.
whenever people were like, if I were like, I worked in the bar, so like that's how I met people the first 3 years I moved there, and especially if I meet like a girl and I'd be like, "You want to go on a date or whatever?" They'd be like, "Sure, where do you live? Can you pick me up?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I live down in Pompano." They'd be like, No, that's kind of far. And I was like,
Is it?
"What do you mean?"
Yeah.
I do this.
Yeah.
I do this drive 4 times a week, like.
Yeah. Super
And-
normal.
Exactly, but I don't know. I think that's part of the culture too.
It-
But like I said,
that's probably
if,
playing into
if
it, yeah.
everything's a geographical marvel, like in that it's always the same distance away. It's like, well, fuck, we just have to start driving.
Yeah.
But down there, it's like, are you kidding me? Like,
That's pretty weird.
it's an undertaking everywhere you go.
Yeah. Where I grew up, like the closest Walmart was 45 minutes to an hour away. Like I was in the middle of nowhere for sure. And I loved it. But that did the same thing for me. Where like driving 30 minutes somewhere is like, okay, of course, you have to drive 30 minutes.
Well, I feel like I got wrapped up. I grew up at such an interesting time. I mean, how old are you?
32.
Oh, you're
Yeah, we're like the
older
same
than
age,
me.
yeah.
So we grew up at such an interesting time in that we kind of got to experience like that the post 80s like modernization of whatever the times, you know, in that we can relate to the generation above us, and that like we remember a time and everything. You know, we play outside, and, you know what I mean?
Right.
But then we're close enough to the technological generation where like they're married to their phones, and they, you know, like they don't really know what it's like to be rough and tumble and, you know, all that other shit. So that we can relate to both. You know,
It is
like,
really interesting.
And so like my stepson, he's 12. If you take his phone away from him, he's like lost in the world. Like he could not figure out what to do. An hour of time to him must be is like an eternity.
That's nuts.
And for me, it's crazy to look at and be like, bro, read a book, draw a picture. I don't know. Like, go find
There's so many things to do.
There's so much, and it was like you don't get. And where I was from,
Bruh.
if you had to find an hour to kill, and it was like snow, like the weather was shitty, or you mean whatever,
Yeah.
that was it. You really had nothing to do. You really
Right.
had to, you had to,
Right.
And it's crazy. Like for me, I'm like, bro, there's a pool, like like a 5-minute walk from the house. Like, oh my god,
What
it's
does
crazy.
what does he eventually do? Like, does he just go crazy till he gets his phone back?
You know, he figures something out. I mean, that's the thing he's generally is pretty like with it. You
Nice.
know? And it's more a thing like it's easy for me as a grown man to sit back and make a damn kid. But like there was a time when I too, if my dad took the Super Nintendo away, it was
You were
crying in my room for an hour and a half. Oh, Super Nintendo.
Is that like last Christmas? Like, when's the last time you cried over a Super Nintendo?
my last bad report card? So 2 Christmases.
Nice.
No, but
Dude, I am super happy that you're here, first of all, because this has been a long time coming.
hell yeah, we've been talking about doing this for what?
Forever.
5 years now.
You were one of the OG on when it was still a Zoom podcast when it very first started. I don't remember what episode number we did. One of the first 5 or 10, I would say, that we did.
Was it 3 years ago now?
Yeah, which is crazy. Also,
We talked about doing like a long form kind of
Yeah.
thing. What, back in 2000?
probably find a picture of us
16,
at
17.
Butler hot dog
Yep, running around
shop.
Butler.
That was a good day. That
was a
was
good day.
awesome.
That was awesome. That was a lot of fun.
But yeah, man. So you're in town for stout fights really yesterday. So I obviously wanted to talk about that a little bit. I saw the match didn't go your way, but how was the experience overall?
It was fun, man. I forget. Competing is my job, and it's weird because it's like it feels more and more like a job every time I do it. And I don't not necessarily complaining. It's just that it feels more and more like a job in that it's not just putting your clothes on and going and doing it anymore. You know, like especially whenever I fight, like I fight, you know.
Right.
But one thing I'll probably never be able to fully break away from, at least I hope, is that I do still enjoy it in a weird way, you know? And I mean, it's not, like I said, there's a little bit more pressure, a little bit more like, I don't know how to say it. It's like, I'm not just competing for me anymore. When I started, you know what I mean? I was fucking, really I was 17. Let's say when I was, 19, 20 years old, it was just something I did. I mean, obviously I had dreams and like I was always like, yeah, that's where I'm going to end up.
Right.
But, I didn't have the full scope of it yet. It was just, the same as how, when you're 19 years old, what do kids do when they're 19? I don't even remember. But the same as how you wake up, you go hang out with your friends and goof off at a park.
Right.
It was
right.
Wake up, drink some coffee, go to practice, come home. You know what I mean? And it was fun, but fun in a way that it was like, it doesn't really fucking matter.
Right. Right.
And now, and I'm not like, it's going to sound like I'm talking shit, but I'm not. And now it's a thing where it's like every competitive decision I make matters. You know, like it's not always good for my brand. It's not always good for my whatever. And again, like it's not like I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the balance, but it is a thing where it's like, okay, well, how does it look if this happens? How does it look if that happens? And ultimately, I find every time, especially the times it doesn't go my way, that it really isn't that big of a deal. It's just competing. It's just having fun. It's just doing what I love to do. But there is a certain consideration that goes into every step that I make that wasn't there 10 years ago.
I think that makes perfect sense.
So
Yeah, I mean, being where you are now, number 3 ranked Bellator heavyweight, one of the best heavyweights in the world in all of MMA, that matters. If you're going to put yourself on the line in a grappling, even though it's a grappling match, like, still matters.
yeah, and it's like I'm not technically married, but we're engaged. We have a kid. We have a house.
So you're married.
She's my wife. Yeah. And when people come to the house, we tell them.
Sure.
We tell like the contractors and stuff. That's my wife. Tell my husband. Whatever.
Nice.
And then I'm a dad now too. So
Yeah.
it's like everything I do. There's just a little bit more consideration that goes into it.
Right.
know? And not just in the how I perform sense, but also like what does this mean for me long term.
Yeah.
And it's I don't want to say it makes it less fun, but it definitely eliminates that kind of whimsical, like,
Sure.
hey, whatever happens, element
Yeah,
from
yeah.
it. It's like, oh no, like every day when I walk in the door, I'm accountable for it.
For sure.
And it's just different now. Like I said, it's more of a job.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. But that's the way she blows. But that said, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you're blazing a path, like you said.
I love what I do, dude.
Yeah.
And it's special. It's so special that I get to be.
Mhm.
I've like carved something out for myself.
It is.
That's, not only can I make a living doing it, but a nice living. And
Yeah, dude.
I get to. It's 9:30 a.m. on a Monday morning. I'm wearing fucking. My brother calls them hospital shoes. I call them,
Hospital shoes.
I call them easy access slip-on.
I mean, those are just, you're going to the airport. That's just smart thinking.
Best one I
Slip
wear,
on and
I
off.
can wear this, or maybe even like when I go to practice on
Crocs.
every day of the week, it's flip flops and
Yeah,
shorts.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
We in our
Florida.
group chat, Greg Jones, our wrestling
Yeah.
coach.
Shout out Greg Jones.
Shout out Greg Jones, Pennsylvania legend. He pointed out that we had a guy who fought over the weekend who fought a tough fight and he lost. And he pointed out in the group chat that like there's only a very small percentage of people in the whole world that get to show up to. We're talking about these, like a corporate head CEO,
Yeah.
but who make hundreds of millions of dollars a year, but they can't show up to work in flip flops and t-shirts.
Nice. That's a good point.
Every day I could, if I really wanted to, I could roll out of bed at 9:15, kick in the door, go to practice, come home, and
That's your job.
that's my job. And
Yeah.
as long as I do my best and get better every day,
That's
I've
sick.
fulfilled my obligation to myself and to my immediate surroundings.
That's beautiful. You're full time just training now? That's awesome.
I've been for about 5 years.
Oh wow. I didn't realize that even the last time we talked it was like that.
It was just I think whenever I came up, I'm trying to think. You gotta go. Oh, okay.
He's peacing out.
Hold on.
All right. No, give him a hug. You're good.
I'm gonna give him a hug.
Yeah. See, this is how the Mowry bros do it. Even get the hug on camera. Look at these. There's like 15 feet combined right there in that hug, dude.
I'll text you when I get All right, I'll see you guys
Later, dude. That Butler well water truly builds them different.
You got all of us.
Well, your dad's giant too.
Yeah, my dad's big too.
Yeah. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, my mom's big too.
Really?
My mom's not as much a part of the fight.
Yeah.
The fighting zeitgeist. People that have been around and met my dad. My mom is definitely not part of the fight culture.
I gotcha.
But my mom's not a small woman.
How tall is she?
5'9", maybe.
Oh, yeah,
5'10".
that's-
for a woman.
for a woman?
that's like 6'10".
Your dad's like 6'7" or so?
6'5".
6'5"?
6'5".
Okay.
I think he was 6'6" at one point, but then he had a back surgery and I think he shrunk a little bit. And he walks around like this now.
Crazy.
Part of the deal. Part of it.
Nice, dude. What we were talking about your full-time transition
Yeah,
from
yeah. So I came up. This would have been 2000, maybe like the first couple months of 2017, and I think that was around the time where I'd like had just started making enough money where I could do it full time. And I mean, I had like I had a job where I was doing security, so like it was just working weekends, and it was like it fit in really well with my training schedule. But it was at that point I was able to take long periods of time off from that. And I think like right around that time is whenever I told my boss like, yeah, just leave me off the schedule. I'll call you if something comes up. And then I didn't work again I took a couple odd shifts here and there, but I didn't work like a real meaningful bout of never more than like a couple weeks in a row. And that was
How satisfying was that?
That's the thing. It wasn't like somebody had asked me like, are you still working? And I was like, yeah, I still do. Well, I was like, I worked at this the last time I was meaningfully doing security, I worked at this. It was like a bar restaurant called Galuppi's, and it's like You know, like Conley's and Butler.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yep.
that. It's on a golf course.
Got
It's
it.
a restaurant, and whatever. And it's a popular spot, especially for like the older crowd. They
Sure.
bring in cover bands, and it's a very low,
Sounds cool.
very low impact job. Like,
Yeah.
Like the worst riffraff we'd ever get is like some 50-year-old guys trying to sneak at a joint. Hey, dude, you have to.
Oh, no.
Yeah, exactly. And the worst problem I ever had was like the highest stress moment on that job was a guy would always bring his daughter to golf on the course after hours. So it'd be like 9:30 at night, and him and his 5-year-old daughter are out putting on the green. And I was like, "Look, bro, like I don't think any less of you as a man. I can't allow you to do this." And I remember, but he got super pissed.
Oh my God.
Like grabbed me by the shirt, and I was like, "Bro, what the fuck
What are
is
you
going
doing?"
on?" And it was it turned into a whole thing. So it was a county golf course. So here's me and this guy, and I'm like, it's usually a pretty. And then the best part, what made it so low impact was not just me having to confront people, but usually people's reaction was almost always like, "Yeah, okay." Like,
yeah.
they knew they shouldn't have been doing it
Sure.
anyway, so they were okay, whatever. And they just, well, "You're not going to kick me out, are you?" That was the next question. Am I going to get kicked out? No, just
stop.
Go back and watch some music.
Yeah.
And there's especially the weed smoking older generation.
Yeah,
Like, I was
yeah.
like, you know the deal. You got to keep it in your
It's
car.
not a big
like,
deal, yeah.
Exactly. And especially now, it's like people, especially the time that they came from, they go to a concert, smoke some weed. Yeah, you can't get caught with that.
No,
but
right.
now, especially in Florida, it's basically legal. In Florida,
Yeah.
these people, it's like, not only did I not care to begin with, but the legality of it, if I called a cop, they'd probably be upset that I wasted their time.
Right.
So I was like, just take it to your car, take it to the parking lot. It doesn't even have to make it all the way into your car. Just you can't do it. You can't do it
Right
20
here.
feet, 20
Yeah.
feet away from where people are eating.
Makes perfect sense.
And like I said, so when I first moved to Florida, I was working like the bars and the clubs where it was like every weekend. There was weekends where it was like every day there was a fight or someone was gonna see me in the alleyway with a knife or something, and I'm like, bro, I can't do this.
Ugh.
I did that for a while. Luckily, landed this job at Galuppi's, and then like I said, at some point somebody had asked me like, "Yeah, you still over there at Galuppi's?" It was my teammates, Logan Storley, Chaz Kelly. I bumped into them one day because they were golfing.
Nice.
So they had made it. They were
Nice.
not working anymore, and I had just started my shift, and they were just walking off the back nine.
That's awesome.
And it was like, "Sorry guys, not where you're at yet."
Yeah.
But about maybe probably 3-6 months later, I'd finally stopped, and they're like, "Yeah, you still over there at Galuppi's?" And I was like, "Yeah,
Actually.
when was the last time I worked?" And then that was when it dawned on me, like, "Oh,
That's
I do
crazy.
this full time now."
Pretty cool that it wasn't like a conscious decision. You just
No.
kind of grew into that.
There wasn't this like watershed moment.
Sure.
Of like, "Gerard, it's done." I just told him. I can remember telling him at one point, "Yeah, like go ahead and take me off the schedule. Like I'll call you whenever I come back." And he was like, my boss was fucking super understanding, really cool, and he was the type that like. I remember I had to call off for a shift, and I called, but like a whole week. And if hey, I'm not gonna be able to work at his Park Tavern. I'm not gonna be able to work at Park Tavern this weekend. He's like, "What do you mean tomorrow?" Like it was a Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, next week. He was like, "Oh yeah, usually when I get this call, it's like an hour."
Yeah. Right. Right.
So me giving him the heads up, go ahead, take me on the schedule. I'll call you when I need to come back. He was
Really
like,
cool.
Yeah, and like I said, he had told me when he hired me, like, this isn't that kind of job, dude. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting's your career, and if you get married, that's your family. All that stuff should be
Way ahead
of this. And then if you put this any higher above them or any lower down the priority list, okay, maybe we'll have an issue. But
That's really cool that he was so understanding.
yeah, he was an awesome guy.
Nice, dude. It's good to be surrounded by people like that, which I feel like you have been kind of your whole career,
my
man.
whole career,
been,
yeah.
I don't know if it's lucky, fortunate. I don't know if that your energy just kind of attracts that as well, because I feel like you're not going to put yourself in a bad spot either. Like you've been pretty smart about where you train, who you train with.
I appreciate that, but it's also part of it's. I just been very blessed to bump into the right people at the right time.
That's true, man.
I think of Ryan Covert, who's like my first real boxing coach, who like we like picked up the reins together. We're like, let's really make a run at this, I met him because I was doing some boxing at a gym, and I'd always heard like stories, or I don't want to say rumors, but like him and my coach used to train together, and then they fought at one point, and then they trained together, and then he he came to the movie store I worked at in Butler, Family Video, and I put his information in, and his name came up, and I was like, "Are you the same Ryan Covert that used to trade with KP?" And he was, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah. I just got started, like I forget how it came up, but he's like, maybe I'll come down and see you at the gym sometime." And I think that and you'd have to ask him, but I think that in his head he was like, "I'm gonna go beat the piss out of this whippersnapper." And we sparred, and he realized like I was serious about it.
Yeah.
And he was like. And then really from that moment on, we were.
That's so sick.
We just took, and then here we are, whatever.
Yeah.
10 years later, and like I said, one of him, Mike Demko was working my corner last night. He's a guy that, same thing.
Been around forever.
And like he and I like are not so much like our interests outside of the sport, but like as people, we just really gelled, not just in our interest in the sport, but like our philosophies, our stuff like that, like our values. They just really lined up right away. And
nice.
it just worked out.
He's a guy I would love to have on the podcast too, and I feel bad that I don't know more about him. He's like in the shadows. Everybody who's legit super Pittsburgh MMA OG knows him and worked with him, but he's not a guy that's constantly out front.
He was never a guy that. Maybe that's why it worked so well. Was because I could always depend on him to like. He was always in it for me, and that was you only really get a handful of those people.
That's awesome, yeah, for sure.
And even one thing that I made it to the highest level, and I have a really good relationship with all my coaches now.
Nice.
But one thing I do miss is that like when I called Covert and Demko, it was go time. No matter what was going on.
Yeah.
But now there's like like I said, Henry, I do feel loved and cared about.
For sure.
I'd even say I'm a priority there. But there are other things to consider, and it's again
stable's crazy there.
Exactly, and it's like even still like there's so much to consider, and even if I can remember weekends where like I fought this guy Sean Teed. He's a CFFC champion. And he was making his Bellator debut, and that was a big moment for me. Like
sure,
this could be a big opponent. If I beat him, like that looks really good. A guy from a different promotion, a regional promotion.
Champ.
With a champion from a regional promotion coming up, and I was really excited, and everybody else was excited about it too, but it just so happened to be the weekend that I can't remember exactly who Michael Chandler was a backup for. I want to say Connor and Dustin. It was like right when the pandemic, right when the Fight Island thing was happening. And the coaches told me, like, look, like, you're prepared. We'd love to work this corner. Like,
we just can't this time.
We got to be there with Chandler.
It makes sense.
And I understood now.
Yeah.
And again, like, don't get me, there was a little bit, I don't want to say hurt feelings. There was a little bit of like, oh, okay. But at the end of the day, like, now with some perspective, even looking back, I'm like, man, fuck, I can't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can blame him either.
It is a business for them too, and like it makes sense,
and not just in terms of self-interest, but like the utilitarian approach.
For
like,
sure.
Hey, look, we have to really like consider everything going on, and we have to make like a snap judgment. And like so I watched the fight, and then I went to Instagram right away, and the first thing I saw was on Henry and Greg's story. They're all huddled up in a fucking hotel room watching my fight.
Oh, that's awesome.
In Abu Dhabi, and it was like
nice.
Great, like just
see that still feels good.
Yeah, it was awesome, and then like to hear them, especially like Henry and Greg, like like that was
so
like,
cool.
I don't think Greg realized it, but Henry was recording Greg watching it, and Greg was like, "That's the thing, our shit works if you do it." And I was like just getting all hyped up, and I was getting hyped up. Fuck yeah, Greg's the type that like he's probably watching. If he ever does watch this, Greg's a fucking asshole, and he's as a coach, he's very hard to please, and he sets a standard super high, and it comes out in the wash. Whenever if you can be in that environment and thrive and learn, you really will excel and grow.
That's
and
beautiful.
It's meant to be like a pressure cooker. Like he's very, especially when he's in coach mode, he's very hard to like.
I could totally see that.
To get if you ever hear him say something, not just positive but complimentary, like you did something really
nice,
right? So in that moment, to see him like getting
for
hyped
sure
up, watch me was like,
dude, that's awesome.
Fuck yeah,
that's a big win.
Oh, it's huge.
So how is Greg right now in terms of competition? Does he have interest in competing? Not MMA, but like a grappling tournament or anything?
Probably not.
I'm trying to get him up here for Sprawl in the Berg. That was my pitch for Greg Jones. the legend for a Sprawl in the Berg match.
I mean, money.
Money talks,
this is
bro.
me talking. Money talks. That's all I'm gonna say. No, I've had the distinct pleasure of training with a lot of really good guys over the year, a lot of good wrestlers. And the thing is, when I train with guys who specialize in one discipline, I make it a point to do just that discipline.
Yeah, nice.
So I roll at Fight Sports with Cyborg and Wagner and those guys.
What's that like, first of all, before we blow past it? Just what's that?
I feel like I could spend an hour talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're animals, dude. And I've been going down there, and I mean, amongst the usual suspects, so Cyborg is obviously like the team captain, as it were.
Right.
But then Wagner Rocha, who was our coach for a while, and we loved having Wagner, but it became a thing where Wagner's scope was too wide. He was with us, and then he's still competing.
Sure.
And then his kids are coming up now. So it just turned into a thing where it just wasn't making sense anymore.
Right.
You know, but about as amicable a split as you could have with.
Nice.
It just ended up being
especially in this sport. It's always so messy.
It's always egos and hurt
testosterone.
feelings. Exactly. But I don't even know the full gist of how it happened. But I remember that they just said in an off, "Oh yeah, Wagner's not coming up anymore," and we're like, "Oh,
that's
well,
not...
damn." But But then sometime we were doing construction on the gym and we couldn't train there for some reason. And Greg had said, "Hey, I checked in with Wagner." He said, "Anybody that wants to go down can go."
Wow, that's awesome, man.
And then whenever I started seeing Wagner again more regularly, it seemed like on his side too is just a matter of fact
drifted away.
Yeah, look, it wasn't working out. You know? And again, and then Wagner still works with Gilbert.
Okay, that makes sense.
Wagner is still Gilbert's. I don't know about his head jiu-jitsu coach, but that's the guy he goes to.
Sure.
So no, about just like a
that's so cool. Though.
Truly amicable, and like I said, in this sport, you never get that.
Right.
But just hey, we'll catch you on the flip side. He's been up a handful of times since and working out with Gilbert, and it's
like nothing ever happened.
Just, hey, what's up? How's it going?
Yeah.
And then like I said, for him to not only to have him up is cool, but when we go down there, he's always
open arms.
He's always like, just bring whoever you want. We love having you.
Okay. It's awesome to hear, man. I like that because he's nasty. Like his jiu-jitsu is nasty, bro. He's like built for combat jiu-jitsu. I feel like
he has a reputation for being like I don't want to say dirty, but being like a violent, aggressive competitor, and people miss the fact that he's a stellar jiu-jitsu technician.
Like, for sure.
He knows jiu-jitsu. I not just from rolling with him, but seeing him roll. He's like about as a world-class jiu-jitsu practitioner as I know.
How different is grappling from fighting? You were talking about the preparation of it. Did you feel like nervous going into stout fights? Is it the same?
Yeah,
same.
Always some kind of nerve.
Yeah, right.
The nerves are a couple things, but the primary things I think with nerves are, one, your expectations of yourself, and two, it's your body's way of telling your brain like, hey, we're gonna do something dangerous and I'm here for it. And I think especially where I get messed up is if you let the nerves turn into something that they're not. If you let the nerves turn to a thing where it's like a little bit of self-doubt is healthy. But if you let it turn to a thing where it's like, I'm not ready, I'm not cut out for this, blah, 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 that it can turn very ugly very quickly. Yeah. But Customato had pointed out, like fire, nerves can burn you to death or it can cook your food,
Nice.
And every time I compete, it's a practice of that. It's a repetition of, is it burning me today or is it going to cook my food?
I like that.
And even then, I really felt like last night, I really felt like it was in cook my food mode.
Yeah. I was surprised. So I missed the actual match, but I saw it was a heel hook.
Yeah.
I was surprised that he was allowed to heel hook you, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I walked into this thing like
Bellator didn't care or anything. Like,
I don't know if they know, but the thing is,
well, anyway, that didn't happen at all.
Catch a Steelers game last night.
That's why I'm wearing the jersey. Yeah.
No,
That's
Bellator. I don't mean that, and I'm not keeping it from them. I had a match with Nicky Rod.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that at some point too, because that's wild.
How long ago was that? About a year and a half ago, maybe.
Sounds right. Yeah.
Is it Christmas of not last year, the year before? So almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to do it above board. Like the pay was great, and it was a fucking awesome opportunity. You know?
Oh,
Like,
yeah, dude.
But I came off a win a few weeks before, and I was like, the worst thing I could do for myself politically would be, one, to compete somewhere I'm not supposed to because it was on Fight Pass, and two, get hurt in a grappling
Right.
match.
You had just won for Bellator a week. Okay. Yeah.
couple, like maybe a month before.
Cool.
Yeah. And so I talked to my agent, and I was like, can you please make sure? And he's like, I'm telling you, I think it's going to be okay. And I was like, but can you just make sure?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then Bellator talked to my agent talked to me, and he was like, yeah, it's okay.
You're fine.
Relax. And
Nice.
I've taken that approach ever since. Like, I have to, obviously, like I said, it's not just showing up, signing on the dotted line anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
People to call, boxes to check, kind of thing. But that's every grappling competition. So I did Nicky Rod, and then almost a year later, I did Stefan Bonto, #1 ranked brown belt in the world, just got promoted to black belt. And then this match last night. Every match since then, the heel hooks have come up every time.
Yeah.
And I'm of the mindset where it's like, and again, this isn't me making any excuses, it's not me talking bad, but I'm of the mindset every time that's like, okay, like we might as well allow heel hooks, but I'm not gonna risk. And last night was the closest I ever got. He really fucking threw that thing on fast, and I could tell he was gonna try to take it home. And I mean, that's
what you
that's
do.
the sport.
Yeah.
That's what he did exactly what he was supposed to do. I'm just saying that for me though, like Bellator probably doesn't care if I get tapped out, but if Bellator call, especially now, if Bellator calls me and is like, hey, you're up in 10 weeks. Well, hey,
I just tore my
MCL.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if I didn't get dropped or at least put on
dude.
on the shelf somewhere, you know.
Yep.
So and then I mean, an injury of that magnitude is not the same as like, you know, you bump or bruise, you know, a cut, like your knee. Especially, I'm 31 now. If I'm 22, it's not a big deal. I'm
Right.
31 now, like.
You may not be the same after that. Yeah.
Some guys make it a 7-month turnaround, no problem. I know guys who hurt their knee at 25 and they're still not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like one of those in that moment, in a competitive moment like that where anything could happen. It's like,
Yeah.
fuck, you got me. And
I get it. Yeah.
So
The reason I was asking is because Dalton Rasta, we just announced he's competing for us at Sprawlenberg 2
Nice.
on October 20th, and he's facing Tanner Hall from Stout. I don't know if you know Tanner or not. Black belt from
did he
Stout.
compete last night?
I don't know. No, I don't think he did. He wasn't on that card.
I don't think I know him, but maybe if I saw him.
Super legit. He grappled Jake Lowry at Sprawlenberg 1,
cool.
so it was a good match. But the reason I was asking is like,
Maybe they have room for a heavyweight on that card.
I mean, we'll talk after the
we'll talk
stream.
off
I
camera,
got an idea for you.
Okay.
But
anyway, I don't
it's
wanna
Greg
make- maybe
Jones.
I'm
It's
making-
you versus
it's
Greg
me,
Jones.
Greg
No, but
I want to continue that. We
Yeah.
have to get back to that. in a
Okay.
minute, but
But yeah, when I was talking to Dalton, like he didn't request it or anything, but I just told Tanner and them straight up, like, no heel. I put that rule in place
cool.
because I'm like, why risk this for Dalton? Like
Yeah.
that just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, my thing is that, so I'll try to make this is its own story. But AJ Souza, who's a very respected member of the jiu-jitsu community, is my brother-in-law. And he's also now my jiu-jitsu coach. So when I moved to Florida, AJ Souza had popped big when I first started training. Like he either was getting ready to win his first world title or he did. And in jiu-jitsu. And whenever I was first talking about moving, he'd popped. And then whenever I moved to Florida, Gilbert and him were like training partners. So I'd seen him around at an open mat, and Gilbert had always spoke really highly of him, and he pointed him out. You should go get some training with him sometime. You should get a good role with him. And it just never worked out. Like he was leaving when I was coming, and like one time I think I was doing my own thing with Stefan while they were over there doing something, and it just never worked out. And then, but like I said, the second I saw him, I knew who he was.
Right.
And years later, I'm on a date with my fiance, my wife now, and she was like, "Yeah, my brother-in-law does that stuff. You ever heard of AJ Souza?"
No way.
And I was like, "Yeah, I have heard of AJ Souza."
Turns out.
Turns out, and funny enough, whenever I met him for the first time, we're on a double date. Like,
That's so funny,
So
dude.
I've known him
No
for
way.
4 years now, and he was my brother-in-law until about 6 months ago. And after the Aliyah Saev fight, I had to take a look at the mirror and be like, my jiu-jitsu is not the same as it was. And I, kind of swallowed my pride and said, like, hey, look, I really need some help, and like, I like your style, I like your approach, like, let's give this a shot.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's been awesome, and I feel like I'm learning a lot. I feel like, it's the technical details that we missed in MMA, the jiu-jitsu guys, that's like, what do you mean you don't do this? What do you mean you don't do that?
Yeah.
What do you mean you blah, 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 blah? So anyway, after the match last night, I texted him, and I was like, I got to figure out this heel hook thing, because it's been an issue my last two, and it's, again, like, not making an excuse, but again, it's a thing where it's like, well, look, the heel hook that's the one where it's like, look, like, if your arm pops in an arm bar 9 times out of 10, it's just minor ligament damage. Very rarely do you pop a bicep or a tricep. If you get choked and you go unconscious, usually most refs are most. I've been in some questionable grappling tournaments. Most refs are savvy enough to pick it out. And then even if they're not,
it kind of,
and you're up, you're with it.
Yeah.
Your knee, though, especially your knee, is one where it's like,
just not worth it.
It's just not worth it. And then again, like, if you grab for the competitive the competitive integrity of the event, yes, let's allow heel hooks. If you catch me, you catch me. But I'll be the first to admit that, like, look, bro, I'm not gonna have Usman Paul-Harris, Gary Tonin level event.
Oh, dude.
Or David Avellin was the one where he fucked him up. But it's like, look, dude, it's not that serious for me.
Yeah.
Again, like, the opportunity to go out and compete and do what if I won, I would have treated it like I won. But at the same time, like, it's not like that. But anyway, I texted him and told him that. He said basically the same thing. Like, everyone's arriving at the same logical conclusion in that, like, look, in MMA, that's not as realistic. But then I think about the exchange, the way it happened, and he took me down, pop, like, right off the rip. It was maybe 30 seconds into the match. And he ended up on top of me. I went for a sweep, and in the middle of the sweep, he grabbed my heel. And I think about how, like, to a degree, it's true that, like, yeah, look, the heel hook's just not as prevalent in MMA.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
because you can get punched in the face.
Punched, and then we've seen, for every one good heel hook we've seen pulled off, we've seen
Yes.
3 people get knocked. Gary Tonin got knocked the fuck
I know.
out by
That was
Don Lee.
nasty.
What was it? That was one of the best knockouts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So even AJ was pretty understanding, and yeah, look, but I told him, like, well, look, that exchange could happen in MMA. Like,
Sure.
if he had sat guard and, like, done like an Imanari roll, or like a De La Riva and sat to, like, okay, yes, that's not going to happen. But the exchange and the way that it led to the heel hook, that's a perfectly understandable sequence of events in MMA. So I don't know. It's like one of those things where, I mean, it sucks. It's uncomfortable, and I fucking hate losing, especially in my fucking town. But, like,
Yeah.
not like it's his town too. I'm not an asshole, but but to come up and lose after so long of not competing here, it fucking stings. But at the end of the day, it's just more data for the computer.
Yeah, dude.
More
Back to the lab.
Exactly.
It's funny.
And it feels good to have, like, opportunities like this are nice, because it's an opportunity to get that kind of feedback in real time without the damage to my record or my bank account.
Yeah, right.
So
I think it's exciting that you still, like, not that you're old by any means, but, like, you still care so much that immediately after this, you're texting your jiu-jitsu coach, like, dude, we got to figure out this heel hook thing. Like,
that's probably part of the problem is I fucking care.
Yeah.
And I care a lot. And then, I mean, it's something I think part of the reason I've seen the success that I have is that I care. And it's like, sometimes I wish I didn't. Some days I wish I could, like, bro,
just brush it off.
There have been days I'd be like, man, fuck, like, I want to just get a real job and I don't have to fucking think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But
I think every fighter goes through that, right?
Everybody. And then even guys who were, I know guys who were good, they went through it, and then they came out of that and they were somehow better than they were. Linton is a great example of that.
Wow, the good, yeah.
And like my big brother. And
Yep.
the thing is, I kind of like, at the time I was like knee deep in success, and I was we're talking like 26, 27, 28.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, bro, what the fuck you talk? Get a real job? Are you kidding me? No. But like, hear him, he had like a bad stretch there for a while, and he had a title fight, but he went like 0-3.
Yeah.
He lost his title fight, and he lost the next two after that. And to see him like go to a dark place of like, man, fuck, like,
I don't even know if I want to do that.
exactly,
That's crazy,
like,
man.
it's the training and at this time he was at around this time was 35, 36. Like around that time, it's if you were like 24, 25, it's like, no, shut up.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But he's 35, 36. It's like, okay, well now you're having a conversation that has some rational
Some
weight
legs
to
here,
it.
yeah.
So, and then I think Greg was the one, and then he hired a sports psychologist too. But Greg, I think, was the first person to be like, nah, fuck that. Like,
Nice.
and it helped him get back on track. And, he's about to fight for a title again. And he's 40. And
That's wild.
but
Yeah,
it's-
his resurgence is really remarkable.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's really something else.
But when you see him, like when we came down to Florida that time, I get it. That dude is a specimen, bro.
He's a freak.
He just looks
He
stupid.
looks like a comic book
Yeah,
character.
like he was just walking around with his shirt off, which I would too if I was
If
built
I looked like that,
for sure.
I wouldn't own
No.
a top piece of clothing.
Yeah,
Maybe
like I'm sorry.
maybe a coat that I could wear. Over.
Yeah,
And he's 40.
Yeah,
He's 40 and
nuts.
he looks like that. And it's
good for him, man.
good for him.
But that's in that gym specifically. You guys have the advantage of, I'm sure this helped him too. If he's winning rounds in the gym, he had to know like he still got it
Oh,
because
of
you're with
course.
the elite of the elite every day.
And that was part of like his first win on this tear was Sergey Kharitonov. And a lot of careers go to die at Sergey Kharitonov. And it's not that he's this immaculate gatekeeper, but Sergey Kharitonov is just that guy that like just has stupid power in his hands, and he's tough, and he
Good everywhere,
good.
like
He's competent. He's best on the feet, obviously, and he's been there. It's not even that he's good, but he's been there, done that. So
Yep.
you can't ever really show him something that'll take him out of his game.
right.
If you beat him or you finish him, it's because you really got him.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Ong and I were talking before that fight, and we were all super, we're super nervous for him just because we knew the place he was at in his head, and like, but we were thinking about how like, damn, like if Linton shows up, like the Linton we know shows up, this is gonna be the worst day of Kharitonov's life.
Mm-hmm.
And he went out there and put on the performance of his career up to that point. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know he could fight like that.
That's awesome.
And like, but it just goes back to what I was saying before about how like, he went through like a dark period, and like, I just talked about the Greg thing because it's part of the story, but I do think that like a big part of that goes to Linton being just having the mental resilience to be like, nah, fuck it, like.
Dude, at the end of the day, it's you stepping in that cage against
Exactly.
another man that wants to hurt you badly.
Exactly.
Like,
And that's you have to be a little bit fucked up to not be scared about that.
totally
You know,
would agree.
Funny Tyrone Spong is another I have stories on stories about Tyrone. But
Between
Tyrone,
him and Rumble,
Rumble, and then, so like I talked about training with people who are stellar at their individual
Right.
discipline. I have like probably an hour's worth of fight sports stories, an hour's worth of. I wanted to talk about Greg. I've wrestled with a ton of the long story short about Greg. I've wrestled with a ton of really high level wrestlers. I never felt totally outclassed by anybody except for Greg. And the
Wow.
killer thing is Greg doesn't train anymore. The last time I
Nuts.
worked, he used to he would do some play wrestling and goof around, and he would, especially with Kamaru, and him and Kamaru would give each other a little bit of live work. But whenever he went with me, we were always just goofing around.
Yeah.
But even whenever the competition, the heat of the whatever it was going on,
You could just tell.
I could
Yeah.
not do fucking. I couldn't. And that's the thing. Like even if I were wrestling with somebody who were better than me, I could usually eke out a takedown or a whatever. Sneak something in there that stirred the pot. With Greg, it was I couldn't get to his legs. I couldn't get to an underhook. If he put his fucking collar tie on, I was staring at the ground for 10 minutes. It was just
That's insane.
fucking miserable. And
Not to interrupt here, but Hunter, our one link is the Facebook link is acting a little wonky here.
Okay, Facebook, what are you doing to us, bro?
Getting zucked.
We're getting zucked. I'm not sure, dude. If it's still rolling fine on the app and everything, we might have to just let it ride. Let's see what's going on. The beauties of live streaming, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, still good on the app. So
All right, cool.
yeah. Figure it out, Facebook. Stop being goofy. But yeah, dude, Greg Jones. I mean,
But that's what I mean. I wrestle back in the day. I trained with Jared Rochelle, a 3 or 4 time All-American out of Oklahoma State. He was
and a big dude.
big dude, and he's a much better wrestler than me. Let's not get it twisted. But I felt competitive with him, and I could score takedowns and stuff like that. Elias Saev, the one time that I shot on him, I put him on his back real briefly. He's an Olympian.
Yeah.
Greg Jones, who is one of the best American wrestlers of all time, I would have thought that I would have been able to do something, but
How big? He's considerably smaller too, right? Like what?
he was, especially at this now, he's maybe $195.
Yeah.
The time in question, he's 205 maybe.
Okay, that's honestly bigger than I thought he would
Yeah,
have
but
been.
we're talking about me. I'm 240 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm like competing and
Sure.
training every day.
And he
Here-
just rolls
here's-
up like
here's Greg.
whatever.
Greg has a super erratic sleeping schedule. Has 2 kids.
Yeah.
Just comes in and coaches and. When I mean like it wasn't competitive, it was not.
Not even
and I was actually trying. Like, I was really trying to do shit. Like, and
That's
he would,
amazing.
he's just styling on me, like making me look like an idiot.
He's a bad dude, man.
Oh, one time Linton, him and Linton were like jawing at each other one time, and Linton ran up behind him and grabbed him at a body lock. So from behind standing, he picked him up and like went to like suplex him basically. But what happened with Greg's savvy is so good that whenever he picked him up, he based out and put his hands in Linton's pockets. So when
my
Linton
God.
went back for the suplex, Linton landed flat on his back. Greg landed on top of him in like side control basically and just stayed there. And it was like,
Oh, can't even get him like a
oh my
ninja.
God,
Can't even
that was-
sneak attack
it
him.
was fucking crazy.
That
I was
is
just-
nuts.
It was so impressive to see him like, oh my God. I asked him like, I'd always, especially around the time that he was fucking me up. I
Yeah.
was like, why didn't you take it to like the senior level?
Mm.
And I think he told me like, one, competing was tough for Greg.
Sure.
He was put a lot of-
Mentally, yeah.
competing was hard for Greg. And I think he told me the more succinct answer was he was like, it just wasn't a goal.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do the college thing, and then
That makes I really
I love
respect that.
I fucking
yeah.
love that. And it was just one thing I can always trust about Greg is especially when it comes to like competitive endeavors. He'll be honest with you. If something sucks or whatever, he won't usually. He has the decorum to not tell you suck.
Mm.
But he'll say, no, like that needs work. Or we can improve on that. But like,
Got to be honest in this game.
To hear that's the thing. You hear people say all the time, especially fighters, like, I don't know, it just wasn't a goal and blah blah blah. And it's like, I really, so I'm talking about this competition. I'm doing the best I can to not sound like I'm just trying to make excuses, because I'm so fucking sick and tired of hearing, especially other fighters that I know and love and respect, but they make excuses and they're lying and they'll say whatever they can to make themselves feel better about that. So with Greg, like I've talked to him, he only lost 3-4 times in college, and to ask him about the times that he lost, he's very like forthcoming about. I remember the first time, whenever I first moved there, it was around the first time my first pro fight. I was talking to him about Rashad, and I think Rashad was one of his last 2 losses in college, and Rashad was not a Greg Jones level wrestler.
Right. Well, very few
Never-
people were.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But Rashad never made
Yeah.
All-American.
I know
never,
what you mean. Yeah.
Rashad was stellar, one of the best fighters ever. He's a legend. I mean,
Sure.
Rashad's a good friend. I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying that Greg Jones was
On
like,
pure credentials, they weren't the same. Yeah.
on credentials, on accolades, on skill. Greg Jones is one of the best that ever did it. You know, like on a Cale Sanderson level.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Just one of the best. And Rashad, who is a very good athlete and a very good fighter, was not on the same. But he beat him in college. So here I am talking to Greg about, I think it was about how he got started. And the first thing he said was, well, you know, Rashad beat me in college. And that kind of forthcoming honesty to stop me in the middle of a conversation where I already knew that, first and foremost. I already knew that. And I
Yeah.
thought that he knew that I knew that.
Right.
But he didn't. He made sure to stop me. But wait, okay, so you know that Rashad beat me in college, not the other way around.
Nice.
So that's what I mean when I go back to like Greg, why didn't you do it at the senior? Why didn't you go be world champion or make the Olympics or whatever? to hear him say like it just wasn't a goal of mine is just I believe him.
Yeah. It carries more weight with
exactly,
him. Yeah.
like in a world where so many people, I hurt my knee. I wasn't feeling it that day. I didn't get good enough sleep the night before. To hear the fucking excuses and and especially when I beat people, it's almost I don't believe that it's ever on the person who lost why they lost. It's always what the winner did right. I would think 99.99999% of the time, barring like freak injuries, like
Sure.
Rafael Fiziev hurt his knee when he threw a kick.
Yeah. Nothing you can do about
That
that.
happens.
Yep.
But that is the one in literally 1,000 exception. The other guy just won. The guys who break their legs whenever they get their kicks checked. I mean, it's obviously unfortunate that happened. But again, like
It's a valid technique.
but you kicked a hard check, like that's kickboxing 101. You don't do that shit. But anyway, to hear Greg just say like, yeah, look, I just wasn't a goal. It's
That's
like
crazy.
It's like, damn, okay. Like
But also, it seems like he settled into coaching so well.
Yeah.
Like this is made for him, man. Like the
Yeah.
wrestling of that place. Like we were talking about the room in general, but there's like Storley you mentioned a second ago. I mean, he's
Yeah.
one of the best.
we think about you think about so like another one where this is just recently I talked to him about it. Where I was talking to him about like when I'm done fighting, I think for sure I'm going to be a coach, and not just because it's a direct avenue
Right.
into more work, but I also think like I truly feel it in my heart like I have a lot I can give back.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I really feel like, especially now that I'm 31, so I'm not like old by any means, like old, but I'm not like a spring chicken. And I've been around the block, and like I've fought in Bellator. I mean, this and that. We have a lot of young up and coming guys coming in, and even the guys who are my age that are coming in from other sports, the wrestlers, the jiu-jitsu guys. I do feel like I have to take on sort of like a mentor role to them. And I feel like I not just do it well, but I relish the opportunity to be a light to these guys who
Nice.
that I didn't necessarily have. Don't get me wrong, I had the right people around me, and they were always there and supportive. But I did have to kind of hack my way through the jungle, as it were. And I really do see myself someday, especially now that like I'm doing it and like figuring it out. I could really be somebody to these kids that I didn't always have. And I was talking to Greg about it, just about like coaching and this. He kind of like I said, a lot of the time when me and Greg and I's coaching conversations have changed a lot, and especially nowadays, it's more like direct and succinct. And,
Yeah.
like. Nah, like you just didn't do it well, or like, hey, you did that really well, but you should try this next time, or whatever. Or like even this grappling thing. Like I thought, hey, like I'm going up to Pittsburgh next weekend. I'm gonna do this grappling thing. Oh, that's cool. Where? It's in downtown. I think the Stout people are putting it on. Who's that? Oh, it's a Hensel Gracie affiliate. Okay, let me know how it goes.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and that was it. And then you can't ever get them to sit in one spot for more than I think that was the longest I ever got them to sit still and talk to me.
Nice.
In a non-fighting.
Sure.
Whatever. So and that was it. But I was talking to Greg, and you think about like the Olympics, like you would think that he would directly parlay his college success into a senior level career, and he's just like, yeah, it just wasn't for me. I was talking to him about like you would think that the next natural route would be, okay, why don't you open a club? I think Greg Jones, not just the coaching ability, but on credentials alone, could open Jones Wrestling Club, and like,
For sure.
people would come. Even in Florida, people would come from miles to learn from Jones. And it's like, I was talking to him about it. He was like, he was asking me, okay, who do I see myself coaching? And I was like, I could only see myself coaching guys at the highest level. And it's not because I think I'm too good for, like the amateurs or whatever. It's just like, I feel like I have a better style and a better, whatever would be better for those guys who are making this step up. And I talked to Greg about why not do like a kids program? I think it'd be awesome. And he again was very forthcoming in that, like, yeah, look, I think I could do it and do it well, but one, like, kids aren't really my thing, and other people's kids, he's great with kids, but he's like, I don't know if I could do like a whole kids team.
Right.
And he said, like, and there's just, he said, and like you said, there's just something about doing it at the high level.
I don't think dealing with the kids is the problem. It's dealing with the kids' parents.
Yeah, kids are awesome.
Yeah.
Kids are great. It's the parents that again. And if I had to deal with, even Demko had a really prolific kids program, and I can remember a few parents that if I were the coach, I would be like, you have to watch from the car from now.
Yeah, yeah. Please stay in the car.
You can't like.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Well-
And Demko is runs a very regimented program. You need to for kids, but runs a very
yeah.
a strict regimented program, and he's obviously very diplomatic with the parents. And
Yeah.
stuff. But even still, like I could see it get to him sometimes. These
I
parents
can imagine. Yeah.
who were like 30, 40 pounds overweight, trying to tell him how he should be coaching their kids.
Insane.
It's like the audacity alone.
The audacity.
The audacity alone would be
Yeah.
enough for me to be like, okay, you can come on the mat, and then if you
Show me?
if something
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
I'll give you my class, and,
Yeah.
and then I'll sit on the side and coach you. But,
Dude, I could totally see you transition into a coach though, because I think following your career, it's always been interesting to me. You have like, it's almost a joke, but like how just big and long you are in general. Like you have that genetic gift, but I feel like you never relied on it from the beginning. Like you were always technical, even on the regional level.
Yeah.
Like your jiu-jitsu especially, I remember just being like, what? He's 6'8" and he's got like really slick jiu-jitsu. That's weird. Like you just don't see that often. So what about it made it interesting to you to learn it right versus just being like, well, I'm 6'8" and I can go beat some dudes?
well, the thing about jiu-jitsu was the thing about jiu-jitsu is I'd always approached it from a level of like I want to be very technical, and I didn't let myself ever resort to like, okay, well that works because you're big.
Mm-hmm.
And I told especially Demko was somebody that I was like, look, I don't want to be a big, I want to be good. And he like took the ball and ran with that. And
That's cool, man.
We were talking last night and he was like, I don't really know if I want to do fighters anymore. And when I was getting ready to move, he told me, last night was like, I don't really do fighters anymore. And when I was getting ready to move 8 years ago, he was like, when you're done, I think I'm going to be done with fighters. And he said it was because, I think the culture of fighting is more, to get into fights.
Mm-hmm.
And especially between he and I, it was definitely more of a culture of like, just compete, just do it, and let's just get better. Let's just
Right.
Who cares? Winning, losing, that's all part of the deal. Let's just focus on the process, as it were. Get better
Sure.
every day. And it's rare to find that. And I'm not patting myself on the back so much as I am just acknowledging. Even amongst some of the best in the world, it's like,
Yeah.
Are you doing this to go out and get a check, or are you doing this because you genuinely care about your performance and doing better? And he'd always done we'd always kind of like I don't feel like he ever really had to check me and be like, hey, remember why, it was always a thing where I was like, okay, what did we do to get better? Kind of. One thing that I'll note with my striking was that it was a long time before I found somebody that matched the vision that I had for myself with striking. So with Covert, his boxing style when he fought, he's the type that like he could do all the technical he can throw a beautiful jab and awesome combinations, and whenever you tell him to slow down and throw his stuff in like how a boxer should, he can do it. But he'd be the first to admit that like whenever I get in that ring and smell blood, I just want to get down. Yeah, and it's more power to him. Like again, that kind of whenever I get in the ring, I just want to fight.
Yeah.
And so with Covert, it was more a thing where we were like taking cues from each other, but it was more just like we got lost in like being like big and strong and beating people up. And then I had another coach who he wanted me to fight like an infighting style, and I was like, that's not really what I'm trying to do. It wasn't really until like, and then whenever I moved it came out in the wash, especially when I moved to Florida, because Henry was like, what the fuck are you doing? The running joke between Henry and I was, after sparring, he'd be like, he'd be yelling advice to me. He'd be like, you're fucking 6'8". Why do you fight like you're 5'9"?
Yeah. And
I don't want to say cause problem, but that was the biggest thing for a long time was I didn't get any real technical coaching for a long time from Henry. It was, hey, use your jab, throw a low kick, throw a switch kick. Like, you don't have to be on top of these
Don't
guys.
overthink this.
Yeah. And it, more just like, look, like the style of fighting you do, slow it down, make it longer kind of thing. I didn't really have, Cobra did a good job of teaching it to me, but it was hard to take cues because sometimes we would eventually, a lot of times I feel like just fall back into like, get mean, get
fighting.
nasty.
Yeah,
fighting. And I learned how to fight from Covert. No doubt. But I wouldn't say I became a proficient striker until I got to Henry, and it was because I was able to carry that mindset and that attitude that I learned from Ryan Covert into like the technical nuances that I learned from Henry, and then Sean Soriano is somebody I give a lot of credit to.
It's a name you don't hear very often, but underrated.
Sean and Jason are
That's awesome.
the unsung heroes of that gym. I did when I moved to Florida. Like I said, when I first moved to Florida, we're talking about not being a priority when I was on the Big Show.
Right.
You know, when I first moved there, Henry. I could tell he cared about me and wanted to see me grow and learn, but Henry all but said, like, bro, I don't have time for you right now. And it was
crazy.
He was there and he would help me out when he could, but like pads, my first 2 years I was there, I would get pads with them, but it was only if somebody who I was helping out with their jiu-jitsu was doing pads.
Okay.
So if like Matt Mitrione or Stefan Struve or one of them had a fight coming up, he'd be like, come with Matt, come with Stefan. And then that's when I got my work with Henry. But there was a period of time, a long period, like a little more than a year, where Sean was, this is 5-6 years ago, was slowly making the transition from fighter to coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean is a natural, like, people fucking love Sean. I think if you met Sean, you would love Sean.
Yeah.
Sean's everybody's big brother. And I think Sean, as he was settling into that role, I was the first person he really got to like print onto, and then like he was learning how to be a coach while I was learning how to be a fighter.
Sure.
And I took a year where my first real actual like knockout. A big part of it was because Sean was there, like helping me every step of the way, and I had to slow down everything I was doing. And Sean was patient enough with me that he could like really teach it to me. And like I said, Sean's a huge part of like the fighter I am today, is because Henry and Sean had to work in tandem the first 2-3 years I was there, just to make sure I got time.
Yeah, that process is so interesting to me though, especially with you, because you're right that you kind of had to relearn things when you got back down
Absolutely,
there.
I did. Yeah.
But the humility to do that is what's impressive. Like, why weren't you just like, screw this, I'm going back home where I can just,
well, that's why
be the big fish?
Because I was like, that's why. And so it's the funny thing about the funny thing about answers, or rather, the funny thing about conclusions is that I was talking to somebody about this last night. Is that the older I get, the more I learn that people lean on their own logical understanding of things too much. They don't. Where people get caught up is that we could all arrive at a different conclusion logically, and that's the thing is, as long as there's some sort of rationale involved, they could all be perfectly valid, and generally they are, unless the person's schizophrenic. But like,
Sure.
So I was talking about like there's times where I went, fuck this, man, I need to get a real job.
Yeah.
The thing is, I could logically arrive in that, and 10 years from now, be working a job, making good money, and look back, and I could be proud of where I stopped.
Sure.
I did a lot, and I made some money. Had a world ranking or whatever, fought some good guys. But the thing is that I know that the actual truth, the closest thing you get to the absolute value of truth, is that if I were to do that, I'd be like, I stopped too early. I still loved it. I still wanted to do it. So the thing, so like the big fish in the small pond thing is, I joke about if I lived around here and made the kind of money I've been making, bro, I'd have, I have like 4 acres and a 5-bedroom house, 2 cars, like all that shit. But the cost of living in Florida is so much more expensive, and the economy now. This is its own podcast. But the economy right now fucking sucks. And my point is that to make the living that I want and to have the kind of career I want to have, regardless of money or prestige, it wouldn't come from me being the big fish in the small pond. And the reason why I left is because I realized like I'm turning into somebody that if I stay here, I'll get too comfortable doing that shit. And I didn't want to be just a big guy who grappled. I wanted to be somebody who's well-rounded and good everywhere. I wanted to be somebody that wherever you were bad at, I was going to figure it out and beat you there. And in spite of, I had awesome coaches, great training partners here, a lot of good guys. I just knew I didn't have the resources I needed.
Yeah.
So, maybe, and who's this? It's like one of those, the catch-22 or whatever. That maybe if I had stayed, I could have cultivated that here. But
Sure. I mean, that's been the every fighter who has gone to the next level from here eventually has to go somewhere else to get work.
Yeah, and it's just
So-
hard. Pittsburgh.
It's getting there. It is growing for sure.
For sure. It's just that Pittsburgh, and not even, I'm talking about Pittsburgh on the
Yeah, yeah.
bigger scale, not the MMA scene. Pittsburgh's different from like an LA or a South Florida or even like a Philadelphia, in that there isn't a culture for the things that were the chase your dreams,
Right.
right mindset.
Yeah.
It's get up at your
Go work.
7:30.
Yeah.
Be at work at 8:30. Come home at 5.
Crack an iron.
Crack an iron. Exactly. And look, there's nothing. Hang out with your kid. Hang out with your wife. Go to Moraine on the weekend. And that's fine. That's fucking awesome, and it's admirable. And especially the people that do it well and make time for themselves and their kids. Work a full-time job.
For sure.
That's fucking dope. I'm just saying that. I figured out for myself pretty early that not only is that conducive, it's not conducive in the performative sense. There isn't really a culture for that, but the mindset here isn't for that. Whenever I told my parents, like, yeah, I'm going to move to Florida and try this fighting thing, immediately went to, well, okay, how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to, whatever? Like, and part of that's, your parents are naturally going to worry about you.
Sure.
But it's just as much a thing where it's hard for people to wrap their head around that. Like, what do you mean you don't care what your living standard is like as long as you get to chase your dream? That's insane,
Yeah.
And maybe it's a generational thing too. I don't know. But I do feel like in Florida, there are people like that everywhere who are, I'm trying to make it at this. I'm trying to make it at that. And then in California, there's more people who are like that than there are salt of the earth, work a real job people. But the point is that in California and then in Florida now, you're seeing people who they work like these super weird. I couldn't tell you how many people I've met. For every one person I met that works a regular job, I met somebody they made their money in drop shipping, or I had a guy, one of my most consistent. I did privates with him and his wife for a while. He started a consulting business in stocks, and he said for the first 3 years he did it was broke, and then boom, just popped one day. And
That's crazy,
and
man.
then just shit but that's the thing is, maybe there aren't as many people here, but it's also like that isn't. It just doesn't exist.
It's not part of the fabric of Pittsburgh, really.
It's not.
Yeah.
And it's not. I'm not talking shit. Pittsburgh's magic, dude.
I think we can all agree Pittsburgh's the best.
Pittsburgh's the fucking best, and you'll never hear me say otherwise. It's just that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And it's almost sad because it's like, damn, like if Pittsburgh knew what it was capable of, maybe it would. And I don't know, maybe
we'll see, because I do think it's changing a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of advances for sure.
The sad thing about it is it only started to change after I moved.
That's true.
Like
you were holding us back, bro.
Exactly. I was the linchpin, right? Yeah. But so I can even remember a time whenever I moved that whenever I moved about a year later, I trained at literally every big gym that was here.
Yeah.
You would see me there at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I would do the sparring at Saturdays at Henzo's. I would do the Monday night at Fight Club. I'd be at Demko's twice a week. I'd be in my boxing gym twice a week. If I ever had a Wednesday that was off or for whatever, I would be at the Mat Factory. Everybody at every gym at least knew who I was.
Sure.
But the problem was that you didn't get a lot of. I never saw the Mat Factory guys at Demko's. I never saw the Demko guys at Henzo's. I never. The Fight Club guys was almost always the Ohio guys that came over to us. To get Adam Milstead out of fucking Fight Club was like pulling teeth, But it was tough for me at the time, because I was like, how do you? I feel like you guys are all missing so much. Like especially now, and I never felt like I was saying anything more truthful except for right now. In that, if the culture could find a way the scene could find a way to come together, and like really learn and grow with each other, Pittsburgh would be a force.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that. It felt like it was never going to get figured out. And I'll be damned if a year after moving, I didn't see a picture of Lou Armazzani, Isaac Greeley, and Mike Demko all in Lou's open mat on a Friday night. And I was like, you motherfuckers waited until I moved to start
to figure this out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now Stout Saturday sparring, it's like every gym gets together and they all work together on Saturdays, man. It's pretty cool. It is.
I can remember a time when it was me, if I could ever drag Josh's friend and
Yeah.
Tom Gordon. If I could ever drag him and Tom out of bed, we'd fucking all go down there. but even then, it was like sad.
Yeah.
I was here a few weeks ago for my brother's first pro fight, and I texted Isaac to see what was going on. I was like, maybe I'll catch an open mat somewhere. And he said Saturday morning was sparring at Henzo's. I didn't know it was that big. I thought it was.
Yeah, it's a big thing for sure. I mean, we've got Academy, Stout, Mat Factory there. There's very few gyms that aren't like working together now, which as a promotion, it's double-sided because of course we would want local versus
I
local.
spar with him.
Yeah, but I totally respect that side of things too. We're like,
Of course.
because Common Devontae Smith had that before they fought in the UFC. It was like, why would we
Yeah.
fight now and ruin each other's dreams
Right.
instead of helping each other get there?
And then it ended up working out well for them.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So we see both sides.
But
of
that's
that.
what I'm like. I'm not you, but like you see all the time promoters be like, no, this is a killer be killed thing, and it's the great irony of that is it's like no, like the fighters know, you know.
right.
So like I just saw last night that like Ian Gary and Vicente are gonna fight each other now.
Yeah, what's up? That's crazy.
I truthfully I don't know. And even if I did, I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking.
Sure.
about it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But the thing is, one thing I do feel comfortable saying, and I think it's all but apparent now, is that whatever it is that the two feel about each other, whether it's animosity, whether it's necessity, whether it's hey, this is our career, let's just do it and get it over with, kind of thing, it goes to show that there's more to be gained from them fighting each other right now than there's from them being training partners, and that's. Again, if that's really how they feel about
That's
it,
a good
like,
point,
God
yeah.
bless them. But then Linton and I famously, if I've been asked once, I've been asked 1,000 times, like, when are you and Linton gonna fight? Blah, blah, blah. And Linton and I both are like, bro, like that's it. And here's the thing, I train with several heavyweights now, and I can honestly say I would entertain the idea of fighting some of them, and not because I don't love them or respect them, and it definitely not be the thing where look, let's just fight. We'll take 10 weeks away, we'll fight, and then we'll have you right back.
Come right back. Yeah.
And then we'll get back to work, and then we don't have to worry about it again.
Yeah, true.
And then this Darian Abbey, like we fought, and then within a year we were training together, and it worked out beautifully. And it's Linton's one of the few guys that's like, no,
Not happening.
And then even him, like the comforting thing about it is that like if you were to ask him about it, he would also be like, no, like
Yeah.
there's just. But the diminishing returns is what do they talk about?
For sure.
That's one where we both just look at it and we're like, it's just not worth it, dude. And I mean, not even so much of a like because we like each other a lot, we're close,
Yeah.
but also because it's like, bro, we fight each other 3 times a week. What do we have? What are we gonna do in a cage? You know,
Right.
And then it's also a thing where it's like when I'm getting ready for a fight, the one guy I look forward to having in the gym is.
Right.
And vice versa. Like
Exactly.
so I was getting ready for this thing, and it was, I woke up to go to Cyborgs. It was Tuesday morning at 6:45 in the morning. You have to get to Cyborgs in Miami. You have to wait. You have to leave an hour and a half early. And I woke up at 7:00, and Linton told me that one of the guys he was going to work with couldn't go, and he was like, "Can you come up and give me work?" So I texted the guys at Cyborgs, "Hey, sorry, I'm not going to make it today." And it was
Instant.
But that's what I'm saying is like there aren't many people I feel that way about.
Right.
Most people, even the guys I like, I'm like, look, it's just business. Let's just do it, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. Linton's one of those guys where it's and I told Wagner the next time I saw him, like, look, there aren't. If I have something coming up, it's like, look, like love and respect, but I can't. I have my own thing. Linton's one of those guys that.
It's always, as a promoter, it's interesting whenever I see like Dana White give people slack for not doing it. And like Aljo and Merab, probably the most recent example, they're like, we're not fighting each other, period. And he like tries to flip it on them like they're bad people, not about that life. And it's like, dude, there's a bigger level above it than this fight.
Well, and I feel like that is predatory is the best way I could say it. I think to say it. Not predatory like a direct attack, but like deliberately trying to use the diatribe to turn it into such a way that it's like you're making it into something it's not.
For sure.
And so like with Linton and I, it's very much a thing where it's like Linton's like my big brother, and I'm very careful about who I call brother. Linton's somebody that like he knows my kid, he knows my wife. Like he was the night that I got engaged, he was there. It's just like Linton's one of my best friends. I don't need to fight him.
Yeah.
I just don't. I just fucking don't. My own brother, who I fought probably 1,000 times. Again, there's people of who's a better boxer, who's a better this. It's like, bro, I've been fighting him for fucking 27 years.
I haven't been keeping score.
Yeah, exactly. Like, bro, we're a few paychecks behind. So, and then my favorite thing that Dana White was doing for a while there, and again, it's hard to fault him for because again, Dana White's in the fight making business.
Yeah,
you have to.
You get why.
Exactly.
Of course, you get why.
I get it, and even to some degree, I think I understand where he's coming from. But like for a while, he was doing that. Well, they didn't want to fight. He was saying that, which means that he offered people the fight, and for whatever reason, they said, "Hey, to make that make sense, we have
Right.
to do this." And so to counter by saying they didn't want the fight is truthful enough in that, yeah, they didn't want to fight,
They didn't want the offer presented.
but
yeah.
it has a certain amount of like, well, that's not really
For
what's
sure.
going. It's not
For
that they,
sure.
It's not that the desire wasn't there. It's just that it didn't make enough
Yep.
sense.
Yep.
And then again, so when they talk about fighting, like people that I train with, it's like, look, like Elias I have somebody I trained with in the past. And again, like, and he's not somebody I was close with. Cool guy. And I think even he had admitted, yeah, he's a nice guy, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's the thing where it's like, bro, what are we really doing? Like fuck it, let's just,
Let's
and
do
then
it,
even him, it's like we were just a pit stop at each other's lives. Like,
Right.
Like, bro, that was cool that we did, but like and then whenever I was getting ready to fight him, it was like, this is fucking dope. Like he wanted, after we trained together, he went on and won that tournament.
Yeah.
So it's like this is a big the opportunity. I don't care if I ever train with you again, a win over you would be
Big.
phenomenal. And then
Yeah.
whenever we're 55, we can, if I
Laugh
bump,
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Man, we had a fucking good one. Like.
That's so cool.
That's what I mean. Like, especially in the culture of fighting, that promoters, for as much as they want it to be a legitimate sport, are still resorting to the barbaric.
For sure.
Like, no, this is the fight business bullshit, and it's exhausting because they really don't know which direction they want to take it.
How involved are you? Because it's funny, us being a regional MMA promotion, it's almost it's rare that a fighter has a manager at all, let alone one that like really knows what he or she is doing. How involved are you in like accepting fights with Bellator? Do you even handle that at all at this point?
I have an agent.
Does he like talk to you about the offer? Like,
Oh,
are you
yeah.
cool with this, or you just trust him?
Yeah, but I've had 3
Okay.
in my career. My first one was Glenn Robinson, rest in peace. And Glenn was a guy who took on too much.
Yeah.
Nice dude. I really think he had his head and his heart were in the right place when he started, but it quickly outgrew the
Took
scope.
on a life of its own for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it outgrew the scope, not only of what he thought he could handle, but also not just the size of it outgrew him, but the scope and the
Right.
capability. He was not.
It was a wild empire there for a split second.
Oh, it was
yeah.
crazy. And I got in at the tail end, but I still saw some of like the bro. And then just the secondhand stories I'd have for you about what went on there. But anyway, nice guy, but did not have my best interest in mind. Not even speaking maliciously. Just
Yeah. He couldn't.
he could.
He
not.
was overwhelmed.
He could
Yeah.
not. He dropped me, which was a weird. I don't want to say weird. And when him and Henry fell out, that's so like for every one Wagner Rocha, there's 10 Henry and Glenn's.
Right.
And even that one, you have to side with Henry on that one. Like, look, it wasn't working out, and he left. I think he knew I was gonna go with Henry wherever he went.
Sure.
And he dropped me. But my thing was, I was like, whatever. Glenn didn't work out. The next group that I had, Janus Sports, where again, I had to let them go because I just didn't feel like I was. I don't know how to say it. I didn't feel like they were doing their job as well as they could. And that's just the fact of the matter. And again, nice people and really cool guys. I see Matt Apteker is his name. I see him from time to time, and it's always positive and friendly when I see him. But it just was not working out.
Totally fair.
But I'm with Vayner Sports now, so Lloyd Pearson's my agent.
Okay.
And he has a handful of people that work under him from time to time. And Lloyd and I have a great relationship. And Lloyd's a guy that as soon as I met him, matched the vibe that I kind of wanted from an agent. He's a fucking killer, and he's the type that like whenever I get off the phone with, if I ask him something and we get off the phone, I know he's not only gonna make headway and handle it, But whenever I pick up the phone, he's already going to whatever conversation happened beforehand. It's already going to have momentum wise gone the way that he knows that I would have wanted it to. So the first Moldavsky fight was a perfect example in that. He called me and was like, yeah, so they want to do Moldavsky in August. And before I'd even had the chance to say it, he was like, so I told them we have to redo your contract. And I was like, yes, yes, that is exactly what I'm fucking talking about. I felt like there might have been other people, even other managers that I know that would have been like, no, this is a big chance for you to step up. Let's just my agent not only had the presence of thought to be like, what can we do with this? But also
was in tune with you.
In tune with me enough to know that like
that's awesome, dude.
Yes, and then you don't get that. There's only a handful of managers, agents, blah blah blah, in the sport that have the capacity to handle that.
Very true.
And he's so like I said, I might be a rare exception, but my agent and I are very close.
Nice.
We have a great relationship. He's like I consider him a good friend. And I think even when that's like when I talk about when I'm done fighting and I'm in a more of like a administrative role, I see myself, if I'm not coaching, maybe working with him in some capacity.
That'd be cool.
It'd be really
I think you'd be good at that for sure. Yeah.
And that's something like I don't, if I were to do it, the only person I could see myself doing it with is Lloyd.
Mm-hmm.
And then not just in the sense that like, there's a lot of people, I couldn't take direction from a lot of people, for one. And for two, Lloyd's the guy that not only could I take direction from him, but I kind of, hey, I need your help. Like, what do we do about this kind of thing? But the direct answer to the question would just be that, yeah, like I talked to him, but it's already been, what I like about it is, like I said, it's already been vetted through the Steve way of thinking.
Sure.
So by the time I have the offer at me, it's fully digested, and I already know exactly how he feels about it, what he thinks,
nice.
What the direction is going to be, and then more often than not, it just ends in like a yes or no kind of whatever it is.
That's
he brings
huge.
To me. And that the amount of the amount of stress that takes off me to by the time it's gotten to me and it's already been thought over by somebody who knows what they're doing, what they're talking about, is like it's worth every penny of the percentage of my purse I pay him.
Yeah. You're also at a level which probably makes it easier if like there's only a handful of guys you could possibly fight right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's that's what I'm saying about it feeling more and more like a job every day. Like I have met most of the guys that I want to fight.
Exactly.
Tyrell Fortune is a guy that it is possible I might fight him at some point. We had a fight booked and I got concussed in practice. That's a guy. He even after that fight didn't work out, he came and he trained with us. And it's like
crazy.
It's it's like one of those. I've learned to kind of like put it in the back seat now. Like, well, if it happens, it happens. But like, let's just get this session done with. It
is kind of funny to think of like on our end of things with regional MMA. I mean, we could when we book. Let's just take Justin Patton for instance. He could fight anybody. It could be anybody in the United States. We have no idea. But for you, like at that level, Dalton's the same way. Cody Law, the same way. Like. It's a handful of guys. The options at hand. Mm-hmm. Are you like constantly studying the heavyweight division?
Yeah, not from like I might have to fight him standpoint. Like I really like to see how, purely from a curiosity standpoint, I like to see how the game's evolving. I like to see what people are doing. I like to see like where different styles fit in.
Sure.
And it's cool to see, so like even to some degree, I do it in other sports. I watch like the they just did Worlds. It was really cool to see what guys are doing in wrestling now.
Mm-hmm.
Jiu-jitsu, like I was talking to Demko about it, and part of the deal is with jiu-jitsu is, well, I do feel like I'm a good grappler, and so I was talking to Cyborg about how I was like, when I roll with fighters who are good grapplers, I usually do
really well,
get my way, or at least do really well, and it's just that the level of skill and like the what is considered optimal position and whatever is just different, and it's just not. And then so like to grapple Logan Stout is it just a testament to how like things that go to the wayside in MMA grappling are positions, options, offensively, whatever, that really are not part of the MMA zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Are commonplace in jiu-jitsu, and it just goes.
It
to
is
show.
interesting.
Yeah, and so, especially with MMA, when I like to watch, especially other heavyweights, not just from like okay, I'm gonna have to fight him. What would I do? Thing, but also from like oh, okay, they're doing that out there now. Like, We're seeing like the Russians are like they they have this similar Russian. Their striking is very similar and it's very like slow control, but everything they do is fast and hard kind of thing. But they're like you're seeing a lot more of them do like spinning kicks now. Not not so much like a traditional kickboxing style. And it's just interesting to see. That's just one of several examples. And then you see like the West Coast guys fight different from the East Coast guys. I think about how like in Pittsburgh for a long time, striking was not part of the referendum at all. It was who's the better wrestler.
Wrestling.
Yes. Yeah. And it was again not like a bad thing, but it just goes to show like okay, well the talent pool in our part of the world is so wrestling based.
Yeah.
That's what and it's so interesting to see like. I mean, part of it, admittedly, for me, is like, okay, well, what do I have to do to stay ahead of the curve? But part of it's cool just to see like the forensics of it. Like, how did it get that way? Why is it like that?
It is cool to study that, man.
In jiu-jitsu, it's all leg locks now.
Yep.
Like, literally 60% leg locks, which is funny because like 10 years ago, like wrestlers were really bursting onto the scene. I think leg locks emerged as a necessity because people didn't know how to deal with the top pressure.
Sure.
And now, so it's crazy that like 10 years ago, guys that were beating dudes with toe holds and heel hooks and shit like that. It's crazy to see how that turned into the game as it is now, where everybody's playing a bottom game.
Super sophisticated, yeah.
And it's just on top of one being my job to know it. It's just
interesting.
It's cool. It's fucking dope,
Yeah, we noticed, man. We talk about this a lot. Of even in amateur MMA, the evolution, the overall skill level is so much higher. I've been with 247 now for like 2.5 years, and just in that amount of time, I've seen like debut amateurs that look like they could have been pros 5 years ago. Like that was the level of like local pro. Like these guys are coming out and they just look so much better. I'm sure it's a variety of things.
Yeah.
But I think the evolution of the game and that well-roundedness is just kind of ingrained now. Like before, if you said, I want to be an MMA fighter, it's like, okay, you're a boxer that's going to have to learn how to not get taken down or something. But now they're coming up and they're just MMA fighters.
Yeah.
And we've heard that for a long time. Like I remember when Rory McDonald was blasting the UFC, they're like, oh, he's the first generation that's been learning it all. But like, there's truth to that.
There
and
is.
We're seeing it now, even with amateurs.
Especially with Rory McDonald, because even Rory McDonald, for being the first generation of that, was still so ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Like,
for sure.
So ahead of the curve. And it's just, Rory McDonald was a flash in the pan. Like, even the guys who are the first generation guys who are around now, still are not that good.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that, I mean, and to put some season in the gumbo about, you get the big groups together. Crazy things happen when you get a bunch of minds in one room and you remove the competitive element. Well, not the competitive. Like you need the competitive element. When you remove I don't even think ego is the right word. When you remove the outcome element.
Okay.
And just say,
that's a good way to put
let's
it.
Let's just fucking rock, Mm-hmm. So like I got heel hooked last night. And while it sucks and it's uncomfortable and I'm pissed off that I lost, it just that little element of like, okay, like, in that instant, what did I learn? What can I apply to it? When you get that on a large scale, so I'm thinking about, we're talking about the strip district.
Yeah.
Benzos.
Yep.
Okay, so like that big fucking room they have in the back is, I presume that's where they are. So you get, I mean, this is the every day for me. But you think about, okay, Saturday you have 20, 30 guys usually. What? And I'm just guessing.
I have no idea.
Okay,
I don't go.
So I'll talk about. You don't get down with these boys.
Yeah.
When you think about, so Kill Cliff is a great example, right? Tuesday, Thursdays are our sparring days, and that's what you never know who's going to show up.
No,
and sometimes
that's wild.
So that's the thing. It's I would say 95% of the time it's the usual suspects, but then like Jarrell Miller, the boxer, will just show up. And he's a cool guy. People love him, but like he's just so radically different than what we're used to that it's like, oh damn, like. But that change, that little bit of whatever, causes enough change for people to grow and learn. Tyrone Spong was
cool.
A great example. I was helping Tyrone Spong fought Sergey Karatanov about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And the same thing. Me sparring with Tyrone Spong was such a culture shock because of how significantly advanced his acumen was.
Yeah.
From even the good MMA strikers. It was just so far ahead and so far advanced, and not just his skill and technical ability, but his experience. I felt like just that what the 3-4 weeks of sparring I did with him did so much to my game to make me just stop and think like, what can I do to be optimizing, be better, whatever. That it's constantly learning, growing, whatever. So like I said, in Pittsburgh, if we could really find a way to like, if there really were a way to like get everybody together and start cultivating that more and more. And again, like it's hard to do because the competition on the
it exists
on the stage.
Yeah.
And you're right, it does exist. Not just on the in the cage, but on the interpersonal level. There's some degree of, and why shouldn't there be? There's some degree of competitiveness between the coaches, like I want to have my program be better than your program. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that if we could find a way to bounce the Isaac Greeley's off the Mike Demko's off the Tommy Costas of the, whatever, if we could find a way to do that more in a healthy way with growth as the goal, I really think Pittsburgh could be something special.
I do genuinely think that's starting to happen too. Like we're seeing it more and more. And shout out Tommy Costa. I actually have a text from him that I'm not able to read yet, but I saw he texted me, so I'm excited to see what that's
Tommy
about.
Costa's another. I should have shouted
He's
him
the
out.
man.
He was a guy I trained. I went to his open mat every Friday for like a year
Nice.
and a half. A lot of good. That's what I'm saying.
There's a lot. Yeah.
I had a really good run of it for a long time. I had a lot of like all the local coaches around here were all very welcoming, very patient, very in a world where not only did they not have to let me come train there, but they also could have told me to go fuck myself.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's like, it's just, I'm very grateful that, like, at least we were talking earlier about like the success I've seen did not walk hand in hand with having the right people in my life.
Yeah.
Tommy Costa, shouts to Tommy Costa and, Lou Armazzani and Demko and Greeley, and it could go on forever, of guys who were just cool, just understanding. They wanted to get the best training from themselves and then get the best training with me and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I think it's obviously made you the fighter you are today, and being down in Florida, of course, is huge for you and your development. How do you see yourself? Because we talk so much about your grappling, which is for sure what you were known for at first, but I do feel like your striking caught up significantly in Florida. What do you think of yourself as now? Like, where do you feel most comfortable?
I'm not a grappler anymore. It's just the truth. They're even on the MMA day. So like when I first moved to Black Zillions, I dreaded the kickboxing day, especially because those guys were fucking. It was a striking.
I've heard
gym.
stories about that,
and it was like we could do. How long we've been talking? Almost 2 whole hours. I could spend probably 3 hours just of fucking stories of like. We're talking about like the most horrifying shit you've probably ever heard of. One time here was like once a week.
Just constantly, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, so you talk about, so like, it was like Tyrone, I couldn't tell you how many times I heard about Tyrone Spong putting somebody on their face, or like,
oh, dude. Well,
so this is a little known story. Before I fought Tyrell Fortune, I was the time I had to pull out. I was sparring with Phil Hawes, and Phil Hawes is a stud, great athlete, really good everywhere. And he knocked me out with a kick because I was dropping down with the right hand of the body and he was throwing like a body kick. But it just so happened I bumped into his leg at the same time that I came up. And it's crazy how like, you have to attribute part of that to skill to Phil Hawes for sure. But even that it's just like one of those things like, the unstoppable force. Like boom, like these car crash moments where, and then again, like that's just one of several times where like I've been on the receiving end, I've been on the giving end a couple times. But the fact of the matter is, like, when you're in an environment like that, it would have been, I could have arrived at a logical conclusion that like, man, fuck, like I want to be able to say my kids' names on a motor. Or what I did was like, fuck it, I'm still gonna go, I'm still gonna give my best, I'm still gonna whatever, and just say fuck it, let's figure it out. And over time in that environment, I don't think I won my first round there, my first real kickboxing round until I was there for like a year. And then I wasn't competitive with like the good guys until 3 years ago. And then even now I have days where I'm like, man, fuck.
I'm so far behind.
Yeah, like fuck, I'll have a little hammy my ass one round, or like a guy that I'd never even met, but we had an amateur in I was thinking about a couple of days ago. We had this amateur in like a year and a half ago who was just in town for like a few days. And he was like 230 and like kind of overweight. And I was like, okay, like we have to take it easy on the new guy.
Oh,
and after
God.
5 minutes of working with him, I was like, where the fuck did this guy come from?
Who was it? Do you know?
Just some amateur from like Indiana or something.
Did
like
he
that.
have a crazy background or anything that you
he
didn't
was,
know about?
He was like he'd either just got started as a pro or he was finishing. He was told me 6-3. I think as an amateur, and he's getting ready to go pro. And
That's what I'm saying, dude.
And
These amateurs nowadays are
was
like
like-
different.
and this not even just that he like sparred his ass off, but he was doing shit that I was like, I couldn't do that. Where you just
Yeah.
he was fighting like he did, not to like sell out practice, but he was fighting more of like a counter fighting style.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I didn't know how to do that until 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I couldn't have done what you just did until,
that's crazy.
and I've been here for 8 years.
Yeah,
so I was
yeah,
like, so we're talking about 4 years ago now. I was like, that's something I only just recently figured out.
yeah,
And he's doing it like he'd been doing it his whole life.
crazy.
And I was like, again, we're talking. He's like overweight. He's probably like a middleweight is what he really was. He's
Mm-hmm.
and like a young kid. And I was like, you said, it's just like, man, what are they fucking feeding these kids now? I'm like,
Good for him, man. That's killer. Well, we could go for a lot longer, but I do not want you to miss your flight. That would be the worst thing. So let's bookend this one, but make a plan next time you're in town.
Absolutely,
I
dude.
mean, if October 20th, if you seriously
we'll
are
get
free
off
and want to
whenever-
grapple, let's talk.
Whenever we're off the camera, we'll talk about
We're gonna be talking about this, ladies and gentlemen. Tall Steve Mowry, the legend. Might be the first time, Danny Palm, we take the post podcast picture and the guest is taller than me, like significantly taller too.
like notably.
Oh, like yeah,
Like
you
you look like you're short.
like I'm a kid next to you.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I hate it.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Later,
Pittsburgh.
people.
Pittsburgh, I love you. I don't live here anymore, but this will always be my town, and you'll always be my people. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Another round of applause.